We want to hear from you, your thoughts, your concerns, whether it's, about the homeless population, whether it's about our bicycle lanes, whether it's about short-term rentals, whether it's about how the city is growing so quickly. But we welcome each and every one of you. And with that, Ted, do you want to kind of tell everybody about the ground rules of this session and let them know any other details? Yep, good.
While we wait for Bill, we just want it to be known that since this is a city-run event tonight, we can't be talking about the campaign at all of Councilmember Tom Strand or Bill Murray. We also can't talk about the ballot item that's on there about collective bargaining. So I'm just laying the ground rules. Please don't ask, is this your stance going into the election cycle? Let's just talk about what are the issues that are on your guys' mind. How is the city currently handling those issues? And if we kind of stay to those rules, we stay respectful. We'll be respectful to you, so please don't yell at us. Tom or Bill most likely won't be yelling at you guys. So just kind of laying a couple ground rules tonight of keeping away from any campaign talks and just keeping it to what the city is doing right now. And with that, I'll let you guys kick it off.
Start and open mic. Let us know what you're thinking and why you came tonight and what we can do. Ted's going to be taking notes. We'll share those with all 9 city council members, and we'll share them with the mayor. So with that, who'd like to step up first? Thank you for doing that.
Sure, no problem. My name is Chet Atkins. If you look out the windows right here, you'll see my business. I'm literally across the street from you guys. I own a tattoo shop right there, and then there's Vintages Real Estate.
And keep it close so that Gary can.
And I came because of the homeless action plan. It's been a battle down here for the last several months. They just cleared out the gully a few weeks ago. It was where they called it the gully, the camp down there. That night, we were broken into all through the buildings down here. The amount of human feces in our alley is ridiculous.
Where's your location?
Right across the street. That alley right straight out that window is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And, we've called the cops, a 3-hour wait to get cops. I'm doing a kind of weird thing. I've been here for 8 years on Nevada. It's the only tattoo studio in Nevada. Try to be a good business downtown, but sometimes we feel like we're twisting in the wind over here. And there's a little bit of issues with, like, the downtown partnerships talking about taking that alley and turning it into an art walk over the next few months, which we're super excited about. And we've been cleaning up our alley. We put cameras in. I put signs up. But, as soon as Independent Records went out of business, it was a homeless camp back there. And they were lighting fires back there. We have heroin needles back there. I don't know what to do with that. And so that's why I heard about this. I need to come over and find out what you guys are doing, because the cops try to do a good job, but I waited the other night till 11:30 for them to show up for a gal that's been called 3 or 4 times a week. And she'll sit on your front steps and walk across the street and get on those steps every night, no matter what I do. And I don't, I'm trying to follow the rules and be a nice guy and do what I'm supposed to do. I don't want her to get...
Please come on in.
I don't want her to be, if there's help for her, but she doesn't want to have help. She wants to sit on those steps and nest on my property. What do I do?
And again, Tad? Chet. I'll get it right, Chet, by the end of the night. Maybe I'll come over and see if I get a tattoo. Would that be all right? Yeah. This homeless population issue is a huge challenge. The mayor is working with the county commissioners. We've been dealing with this for several years. In my opinion, it is getting worse. The president of our council, Richard Scorman, and I, about 3 months ago, right into the tail end of 2018, went all around the downtown talking to the store owners, in the downtown area. It's a huge issue. We know that. The mayor's coming out with, now it's a 6-point issue of how to deal with homeless issues. And as you know, some of them are solvable. We can work with people. Shannon and I saw somebody today talking to the sky. Obviously, mental health issues are a huge part of it. Problems with substance abuse, whether it be alcohol or drugs. there's a point in time count that we take every February. Last year it was about 1,600. My gut feeling is this one is going to be more, but the mayor's got a plan. I'll get you a copy of it, and Ted's going to make sure we get your contact information. You're a businessman here, Chet. We want to make sure we deal with this. It's just something that we need to have a plan to go forward. We can't just go out and try and give people bus tickets. I had an opportunity in early January to go to the quarry area. I don't know if that's what you were talking about, that's on Wasatch on the south side of town. And, initially there were like 7 huge dumpsters of stuff that we hauled out of there. It was on private property, and when they're on private property, we have to locate the owners and make sure that they are not giving consent for homeless or anyone to camp out on their property. We eventually got that permission. The day that I went at 7 o'clock in the morning, they had been given 14 days notice to leave. They did not leave. There were about 80 people there, maybe about 14, dogs. People had things like, yards of chain link fence that obviously they had taken from somewhere else. They had
the health department, we deal with them all the time for the tattoo studio, so that they were doing some testing and stuff out there, and some of the disease factors out there were getting pretty serious too.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm concerned with this alley, because I have people in that alley using it as a bathroom. We've had one guy have a heroin overdose on the sidewalk over there.
Yeah.
We know we spray the vomit off every week.
I know. And my heart goes out to you. We are working this. We have a hot team, which is called the Homeless Outreach Team. It was made up of 6 police officers. We're increasing that to 10. We've got to deal with this, and we can't just give it a head fake like in football. We've got to deal with it. It's a problem the mayor is aware of. We've got a full-time, Andrew Phelps is our full-time, employee that works with homeless issues. He's putting together this book, but I'm going to reach out to you, and we'll get your contact information. It's something I think about every day, and it's problematic, and it kind of moves throughout the community and city. When we, essentially ask people to move, they just go somewhere else. So it's a huge problem. We'll see if we have any other comments on that tonight. Typically at our meetings, and we meet the 2nd and 4th Mondays and Tuesdays. Tuesday's our regular meeting in here, and I know it's during the day. It starts at 1 o'clock. Those of you that have jobs, I apologize. It is televised, and we can get citizen comments at that. Lately, we have been getting a lot of citizen comments about bike lanes, and we've been getting a lot of citizen comments about the transit system, which is inadequate for people that don't have cars. But we haven't been getting a lot of comments lately about the homeless population. And if you've traveled around the country, each city deals with this, but it doesn't mean that we don't have to have a plan and take action to make it better. And I think most of you know we've increased the number of beds, both at the Salvation Army and with our Springs Rescue Mission. We spent $500,000 on bathrooms and more beds. And typically on a night, of course tonight it's in the 50s, they have 150 to 200 open beds. We cannot enforce our no camping ban near the riparian or water areas if there are no beds for people to go to. So we're very sensitive to that, and we'll work more on it. Who else came tonight with something on your mind or heart that you want to share with us today? Pass the mic around. Anybody? There you go. Thank you, sir. And please give us your name.
My name is Eric Arnold Martin. One question I had for you is some of the trails that we have, like Sand Creek Trail specifically. The homeless problem isn't just downtown, it's kind of in a lot of areas, and I'm wondering if some of those trails...
And talking to the mic close.
Sorry. If some of those trails are being cleaned up by the city and what the process is on that, because Sand Creek Trail around my place, which is Shelton and South Academy, there's a lot of homeless people back there, and there's a huge mess back there, and it's gotten worse. And I've contacted some groups to possibly clean it up. I think we have there's like a homeless police group. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, this is the hot team.
Right. Yeah.
So it's the homeless outreach team. They're all sworn police officers.
Okay.
And they're trained to deal with issues of mental health, at least in terms of making referrals and dealing with issues for families. When we find families, that's the first group that we want to try and help. A lot of younger males tend to be the ones that are the biggest challenges.
Yeah, so do the trails ever get cleaned up kind of on a schedule base? Or, because I mean, that trail hasn't been cleaned up. I go on a walk there like every day and it just gets worse with trash.
And Ted, you're getting that, right? And the trail is again, which one?
It's the Sand Creek Trail.
Got it, yep.
Southeast part of the Springs.
So that needs attention now.
I believe so, yeah. So, I mean, especially with the bike lane issues that we have, I mean, that's a nice trail to ride my bike on, and I go there all the time, and so I kind of want it to be nice. So, I mean, if anything can be done there, that would be great. In terms of the homeless population, too, a lot of them do have dogs, like you mentioned.
Yep, and they seem to be a lot of pit bulls.
Yeah, they threaten me, like, when I ride my bike, and it's just like I'm on the trail, and there's a dog barking at me and chasing after me, and you know, it's frustrating. I've had code enforcement, animal code enforcement back there, but I mean, how do these homeless people get these animals anyways, and can they adequately take care of them? I mean, it's
a great question, Eric.
It's just crazy what's been going on around here.
I appreciate your input. We'll follow up on that particular trail and look into it. A lot of times the squeaky wheel gets the attention.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate your comments about that. I know a lot of families, women and children, who won't use the trails, many of the trails anymore, or they won't come downtown because they feel uncomfortable and they feel vulnerable. It's something we cannot, we can't pay enough attention to this issue to make it better. So I appreciate your comment. So, anything else?
Yeah, I have one last question. So how do you deal with some of the homeless people that are on like public lands and stuff? You were talking about private land. If they're on private property, like there's you have to contact the owner. But if they're on public lands, what happens? Can they be removed, or I mean, how do you deal with them? I mean, it's a sensitive issue, but
no, it's a good question. The quarry that I talked about was private land. That's problematic for us. If it's public land that belongs to the city, or we know who the owners are, then we give them notice that they have to vacate, and we deal with it case by case, time by time. But if it's public city land or county land, we work with the sheriff's department. And I want to welcome Bill Murray. Come on up here, Bill. We've had two questions about our homeless population, and Eric is just talking about some problems in Sand Creek along the trail there that he feels need some attention from the HOT team. And Bill, I want you to introduce yourself to everybody. And you knew we were starting at 5:30, I think, did you?
No, I didn't.
All right.
I had put down 6 o'clock.
All right.
And tonight's Valentine's Day for you guys. As a heads up, you know, before you leave here, we'll try to have a flower cart outside so that we can prepare. Bill Murray, City Council at large, like Tom, we were elected 4 years ago. We're trying to bring a little bit of collaboration, transparency to this whole process. And of course, as this particular environment shows, we like to talk to the population. We like to find out what really is going on. Because a lot of times we get an all-council note, and it gets lost to all 9 council members. But the floor is yours. Now, homelessness, I guess you're aware, Tom has already
if you
shown.
follow up your thoughts about it. I gave
Okay.
him my thoughts. We've had 2 questions about issues close by our building here and along Sand Creek Trail that they feel they need some attention.
All right, well, I hope you all use the same philosophy I use in addressing issues. Empathy, sympathy, and honesty. Empathize, sympathize, but in all honesty, we treat everybody equally. Okay? I can't help you if you need help, if I can't get you to the resources that we put in place to help the situation out. Okay, in this particular case, the Rescue Mission, Salvation Army, are the designated areas. Of course, we've got the Marion House across the street, but designated areas where we have marshaled resources to assist folks in need in this particular situation. Now, we all understand, after all this discussion, that the whole concept of homeless population is similar to what we talk about the parties, Democrat and Republican. There's no such thing as a single Republican, and there's no such thing as a single Democrat. There's a whole spectrum of issues involved in any and all parties. Well, same issue here. Okay? Homelessness is a series of events that led to a person who is having to camp out. So our job is to determine, first of all, who these folks are. Okay? Then to convince them as best we can to get to an area and we offer the services so that we can service their needs. At the same time, we've got to hold them accountable to the same standards and responsibilities as every member of the community. No, you can't camp here. Period. All right? So that's the understanding we have. So we built out the camping, we built out the low barrier beds. Okay, right now
Bill, will you explain to everybody what a low barrier means?
well, low barrier is it's the lowest threshold of allowing folks into any community. The higher thresholds is you can't come in drunk, you can't come in on drugs, you can't come in with any and all issues. But the low barrier means you can come in and you've got a place to stay.
Now, you can't bring alcohol or drugs
Well,
with
you can't carry
or
stuff
weapons.
with you. You can't carry lots of drugs in. Lots of drugs. Can't carry drugs in with you. Okay. There's reasonable rigor, as you would in any kind of facility, as far as letting people stay next to other folks. But having said that, this is what the direction we're going in. There's a 5-point plan, down from 9 points, that specifically address how we're going to try to focus the population to areas where we can service their needs. And I think that's one of the better ways to approach this particular problem. Also, we're talking about putting a social worker on the street. Right now, all we have is what's called a point-in-time survey.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we've talked about that.
Okay, everybody wanders around one time, comes back in. It's been my experience when I go out of the office here and walk up and down the street, different times, points in the day, I actually talk to different populations, different ages, different genders, okay, from time to time. And I've always wondered why there was a constant difference in these particular populations, but I don't know. But I can't address things I don't know, so the data, you'll hear me talk a lot about data-driven answers. What are the issues? How do I address those particular issues? Now, I wanted to build a camp, but the mayor does not like camps. He refuses to support camps. So low barrier beds was the best solution we come into. That's it. Thank you.
Good. All right, so we've had 2 issues, 2 questions and comments and requests for help on the homeless population. As I stated at the beginning, and some of you that came in a little bit later, welcome. We know it's a special night, but we appreciate your attendance. This is an open mic opportunity for you to share with Bill and I so we can share with the other 7 city council members your worries, your concerns, your compliments, if you've got them, for city government. Who's next? Who would like to share with them? Yes, sir. We'll give you the mic, and if you can talk into it, it'd be great.
I didn't come here with a pre, I didn't have any questions, but with the conversation going, first of all,
And please tell us
Yeah.
who you are.
new to town, Phil Stuckwish, my wife and I just moved into town
From where?
from Peyton area.
Okay.
The homeless problem is so deep, the cause of it. I mean, it's obvious with a government shutdown that government employees were going for food. If they can't make it past 1 paycheck, because they get paid twice a month,
Yeah.
so they missed maybe 2. That's the essence of the problem. The homeless problem is because people in our society. Nevertheless, your situation that you're having to deal with, you're talking about that if they meet these criteria, they can get into the beds. I would think a lot of the homeless have dogs for either companionship or for protection. So if a person that has a dog wants to get it, what happens to the dog? Is there a situation where the animal is taken care of, or is it just left to run wild? And that might support your desire to have a camp if that would allow for the animals to be able to stay with.
Well, it's not just the animals themselves. You have to understand that a lot of these folks carry all their household goods, not just household goods, all their personal goods are being carried. And so, and that's what's happened. At each stage, they present a new set of criteria and issues that we really need to have to face. Okay, we've got a bed for you, got a warm place for you, got food for you. Okay, but you can't bring your stuff in here. Well, that's all I got. So I'm not going to come in. Okay, so we're actually working on building a number of cages whose sole purpose is to store. Again, we're reacting to the issues. Now that they've come to us, we can react to those issues. If they don't come in, we don't know. We're chasing them through culverts and areas where they shouldn't be camping to begin with because it's unsafe, okay, for themselves. But the animal issue, we're putting kennels and with runs in them, again, but not at the volume I think we need. But as they come in and they have the animal, we've got the Humane Society can assist that particular process, but it's on a one-by-one basis vis-a-vis. This is the global issues that can happen. Right now we're showing about 50 plus empty beds a night.
At least.
Okay, now at that threshold, the question is why aren't they coming in? Go back to the population. Is it animals? Is it your household, your goods? Or is there something else? And sometimes it's the something else that really perplexes us. You know, it's the mental health needs. I think we don't quite understand that everything is linked together. And once upon a time, we reduced all our social services to the point where they actually released a lot of folks who need mental health, okay, to the streets. And I think there was a note the other day that was sent to us that unless you're criminally charged, you're not allowed in a mental institution here in the state. Was that? I don't know if anybody else had seen that particular note. They said we're not accepting anybody else except you're charged with a crime. So in essence, you know, I've got to charge you with a crime in essence to get you what I think the needs, your needs might be. Again, complex, costs money. And the key is to balance the needs and wants and responsibilities of us as a community, as a society, with the folks who have need.
And the only thing I'd add is the Springs Rescue Mission. They understand this need to have areas, kennels for animals, and they're working that. Whether they'll have enough or not, you know, depend on the demand. They also have an area, you see the homeless and they have these push carts from, you know, various places like Walmart, and it's loaded with stuff. And if they go to any of these shelter areas, there's not a place to put their stuff. And so they're looking to have storage areas at the Springs Rescue Mission. I don't know about the Salvation Army just yet, but those needs, you know, are critical and we need to move forward. When I talked to some of the homeless population, they saw both Springs Rescue Mission and Salvation Army as a prison. They couldn't bring some alcohol or cigarettes with them. They couldn't bring their significant other with them because the males and females are separated at both areas. But that's the only way you can run the shelters appropriately. But, you know, we work this every day, every month to try and reach out to more people. And you had a follow-up.
I actually did. It was kind of along the same line you were just on. One of the things I've had with interactions, just I'm downtown, across the street from you guys.
Right.
We run into aggressive homeless that are, I'm homeless, I have the right to do these things because I'm homeless. I pay rent here. I pay taxes here. I work here every day. Late at night, my customers sometimes are scared to leave because of the aggressive homeless down here.
Yes.
And when they're cornered by, you know, we have the police or we have the downtown security now that's the daytime security down here. And they're like, well, I'm homeless, so I have the right. As a person who's worked his butt off to get where he's at, that really ticks me off.
I understand.
And you know, and what do I do when I walk outside and I'm scraping the feces off the walls of my business?
I hear you.
And they say, I don't have a place to go to the bathroom, that's my right.
Yeah.
At what point do I lose my temper?
Yeah. No, we hear you, and you're not alone in that. I live on the west side, and there's a group there that is very vocal about how they feel that their rights and their quality of life has been sacrificed, and they don't like it either. So, okay.
Enforcement is a terribly complicated issue.
Thanks.
And it was capacity at first. We couldn't even enforce camping until we showed the
Nope.
right capacity.
We need
to
always be in a mic.
But again, it was a question of capacity, and that was driving to solutions. Okay, is a difficult chore. We think it's fairly easy. But we've been wrestling with this for 5 years, 6 years, and I say wrestling. We have a tendency to talk things to death. If we talk about them enough, they'll go away, and instead they get worse. And again, the key, you'll hear me talk about data-driven. I want to know what's really happening out there. I want to know what the real issues are. I want to know how important and how they really affect us. Now, why have they become more aggressive? Because I don't remember them being this aggressive. And then, by the way, is the aggressive population the homeless or the panhandlers? And so,
Yeah,
we got into
or as some citizens say, the bums. You know.
Yeah, and I can tell you some interesting stories that are perplexing to me. A young lady was sitting on the corner. She had a baby in a stroller. She had a sign, "Help me," and she's texting on her phone.
Give me that microphone, I'll tell you a story. Give me that microphone. So
Now, this is not an exclusive meeting to talk about the homeless population.
like I said, you can go across, you can look out that window and see my place of business from here. So this lady that I've had problems with for weeks now, about a week ago Saturday, we called the police. Police came down and said, "You're trespassing. They have no trespassing signs. It's private property, this and that." They said, "We need you to identify her." So I walked down there and said, "Yes, this is Michelle, who I know by her name now. We've dealt with her so long." And I said, "I have authority to have her charged and get her off the property." They said, "Okay, great." She got on her cell phone and started an anti-nostalgia tattoo campaign on Facebook and raped and pillaged me for 24 hours with her iPhone.
Wow.
What am I supposed to do with that?
You just come talk to us, and we'll talk to the hot team, and we'll do everything we can to protect you as a businessman. Okay? Ted Strobeck has put kind of some other topics up here, the C4C projects, the champion projects that we're talking about, which includes medical, it includes the project that we're looking at the Air Force Academy for the Visitor Center. It includes our beautiful building that's coming out of the ground for the Olympic Center and a soccer stadium. We've also got the bike lanes up there, and I think a lot of citizens don't realize that the city council members are dual-hatted. We sit over at the Plaza building as your board of directors for utilities, which includes water, wastewater, gas, and electric. And so we're dual-hatted. So if you have utilities questions, if you have questions about C4C, if you have questions about what we're doing with our roads, we're bringing in about $50 million a year with 2C, which that was the number on the ballot, to fix our roads because they were horrible 3 years ago. They still need a lot of work. But sir, give us your name and your question or your comment.
Yeah, Daniel Stuckwish. I'm gonna be that guy that drags it back to the previous conversation after you just tried to change it.
Well, it's a hot issue, obviously.
No, that's fine. Forgive my ignorance. I just moved back to Colorado after being out of state for 15 years.
Where were you?
All over the place. Active
Okay.
duty military. So moving around. I just separated and moved back home to Colorado.
Well, welcome back.
My parents. Thank you.
Okay.
Heard a lot of conversations about the things that we're trying to do to help the homeless population and combat that issue. Is there any thought to what might be causing it? And by that I mean, and again, forgive my ignorance, I've been out of town for a while, but I find it hard to believe that the legalization of marijuana, and I hear conversations about legalizing mushrooms now as well, is not drawing people to the state and to the city that maybe wouldn't have been here before, chasing a legalized substance that they can't get in some of the other states. I know you said 5-6 years this has become more of an issue. I'd be curious to ask how many years ago it was that the legalization was passed here in Colorado. 10?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010.
Yeah. So that's just kind of a throwing it against the wall question. I don't know. I find it hard to believe that's not part of the problem.
Well, and your first name again was?
Daniel.
Daniel. I think you're right. A lot of people do believe that the legalization of marijuana, of cannabis, has brought in a lot of people. When they do this point in time count, they find that about 50% of the homeless are local, that haven't come here from Ohio or from Florida or from Wisconsin, that they are local people, but
That means half harm.
yeah, and I have to believe that the cannabis is one of the draws. There's also, and Bill may go into more details, we heard I don't know, a year ago or so, that there are websites that say certain cities are kinder and friendlier to people who don't have roofs over their heads. That's another term that they use. And, we're one of those cities. And that kind of drumbeat goes out, through the internet, and people come here because they feel that they can get resources that maybe other cities don't provide. So, Bill, do you have any other thoughts of what might bring homeless?
I thought, see, this is a problem with data. Point in time survey, I thought was showing upwards of 70% were local. But then you got to watch the definition of local. Local is over 30 days, actually, when you look at the bigger picture. But these folks have been here about 2 years. Okay, substance abuse has been with us throughout our history, all right? And when I was growing up, the substance abuse was putting a plastic bag over your head and sniffing glue, all right? So again, and most of the population is used to abuse being alcohol. Okay, but behind the scenes, the biggest abuse is opioids. All right, and they don't turn to be homeless, but some of them attendant to that particular issue find themselves without resources, and then of course become homeless because of the rapid increase in medical marijuana throughout the country. And now Africa, Canada, okay, has legalized both medical and rec. Okay, the real reason, if that was a reason, no longer exists. California, go to California, things like this. Because of the difficult environment we're in, it gets really cold here. It snows here. There's got to be some other reason that the people nest, and I say nest meaning staying here for 6 months or longer. And that's what I'm trying to get a handle around. Why would somebody come to this environment and camp out? Well, there must be resources here that they understand and use, which means they're local. They've got a network of friends, relatives, acquaintances, whatever, to make this a place that they want to nest, they want to stay at.
Local or an internet connection on the iPhone is also more comfortable here.
Well, I don't believe that's really the case, because again, we're doing more enforcement. You saw the quarry environment the other day where we actually found out who owned the property and then cleaned out the quarry and things like this. No, the word's out on the street. Or at least I was assured by the hot team, the word's on the street, that we're not going to tolerate it. Okay, and why we've tolerated this long, I don't quite understand. Again, the key, our responsibility is drive the solution. Okay, identify the problem, understand the problem, drive the solution sets. And if you don't do that, you need to replace us.
Bill,
How long can someone stay?
please talk into the mic again.
Okay, sorry.
How long can someone stay in Marion House or?
Well, the Marion House has a lot of resources. It's primarily a feeding area.
Okay, how long can they stay in that environment?
I'm unaware of any limitation. Are you, Bill?
So the solution would be to give them a goal to be able not to need to live there anymore.
Right.
Because they can get back on their feet.
Exactly.
So until you start giving them a motivation to
Incentive.
come in so that they can better their existence,
Yeah.
their existence is going to stay. And a lot of them They have trust factors. They don't trust society.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of them won't come in.
Right.
Even when it's offered, even
Yeah.
when it's ordered that they have to go in. So
You're right.
You know,
You're right.
I am not trying to minimize the problem or the magnitude that you guys are trying to deal with.
Right. Ted Skrobak's got a call, and somebody called in, and we'll get to you, that wanted to ask a question during this town hall. Ted?
And by called in, we mean Facebook Live. We are streaming right now, and it's Rebecca Marshall who asks, and I'll read it verbatim, what about the $16 million giveaway of sales tax money to Shields?
Okay. Bill, do you want to start with that? Maybe a lot of people might not be familiar with the background. Is everybody familiar with the store Shields? It's kind of like a Pro Bass or a Bass. Is it Bass Pro?
Sports Authority on steroids.
Sports Authority.
One different. Dick's on steroids. Sports Authority on steroids. National chain. What they do is they build 220,000 two-story units that sell just a whole host of things. They have restaurants in there. They have a Ferris wheel. It's a kind of an entertainment venue that also sells things. They approached us a couple months ago. We've got a national reputation. Folks who've gone there enjoy them. Think of Cabela's. Okay, you go to distance because it's a permanent product. However, what I understand, they sell sporting goods.
Right. So
Now-
it's a huge sporting goods chain.
Now the question becomes for us is, and for you too, is incentivization. Okay, if I want you to come and you're all familiar with the Amazon pulling out of New York this morning or yesterday, 25,000 jobs, but they offered them $4 billion to bring all the work in. But even then, the folks said, "Wait a minute, this is a giveaway." And so there was this community uprising vis-a-vis the actual political event of offering them for $4 billion. In this particular case, Shields came in and said, "Guess what? I want to build across the street on Interquest. You know where Fuzzy's is on Interquest as you go up?
Right off I-25 and Interquest.
I-25. You go up Interquest, and right at the intersection where you have the theater to the right. To the left, you have New Church, things like this. Well, that's prime real estate. They came to us and said, "Listen, we're not going to build here unless you give us an incentive." And they asked for 1% sales tax incentive directly to them. Now, what happened in this particular case is it's somewhat unique in the fact that the sales tax that we use as incentives has already been given to the property owner for public improvements. That's already been taken care of. What they came in and did is say, "Listen, I want you to give us a 1% incentive for us to build here," which goes directly to their profit margin. Some of us took personal offense to that. I said, "I'm sorry, if you want to go to Fountain, you want to go up here to whatever, fine, but that should not be something we get incentive for." Now, you understand what we're talking about when we're talking about incentives and tax incremental financing. Fancy term. What it means is that you get to keep the tax on anything more than you collect now.
Okay.
The issue here, very, very specifically, is that if there's nothing there, everything is 100%. Okay? And if you don't build anything, the 16 million doesn't exist. You got the trade-off? Okay? But if you do build there, the assumption is because you pay 2%, you pay 2%, you pay 2%, that they will pay the 2% into the coffers as well. So you must make a choice, the wisdom of Solomon, to split the baby up and let the baby go down to a fountain, or
Monument.
you do it.
Okay.
So Tom and I differ on this one. Personally, said no, thank you very much. It's prime real estate. You may have seen that Penrose just bought 85 acres, about, quarter mile down the road on the same road, and didn't ask for an incentive, but these folks did. And I voted against it.
And it's still up in the air. We haven't finalized this. We just had the initial discussion this week on Tuesday at our regular meeting whether we would take the first step with Shields. We felt, several of us, the majority, you need 5 out of the 9 of us to believe something's in the best interest of the community and provide jobs for people that are looking for jobs, and eventually provide other kinds of income based on sales tax or use tax, provide building jobs. So anyway, this is up in the air, but we need to hear from you on this, and we'll thank the person that called in on the question on Shields. Who's got the mic? You're up. Tell us who you are.
My name's Dan Boyce.
Okay.
Were you keen on switching subjects from the homeless situation?
We can go wherever you want to go. This is an open mic. If you want to go back to that and you have some thoughts that you want to share, please do it.
Not thoughts, just a question. Curious about your reflections. I think Chet mentioned it just a little bit, but if you could talk maybe about what you're hearing, the correlation, if there has been maybe an increase in interactions with the homeless population, and just how much that's correlated with the takedown of the quarry camp, and if that might just kind of be, spreading the folks out so that more folks are seeing problems because of that. I just wondering if we could chit chat about that first.
Yeah, as Bill said, he proposed and it didn't get at least support. You understand the group here, we're the legislative group. We're the ones that are responsible for coming up with about a $310 million a year budget, most of which is for public safety, police and fire. Across the street in the city administration building where the mayor lives, they make decisions about, should we support a camp, which Bill's talking about, and some cities have had these camps. This particular area in the quarry area, again, was private property, I don't think any of us are insensitive to the needs of human beings. We just, and your point is well taken, once that almost 200 people were moved from there, they had to scatter and go somewhere. Some of them went out into the county. Our city is one of the largest cities in the United States in terms of what's in the incorporated city, 200 square miles. And issues like Shields, when companies come in, we have to think about fire and police support. And that's why this sales tax money is so important to us, so that we can take care of that. Bill will get into an issue. We're probably 120 police officers, less than what we need for a population that is approaching 500,000. Maybe today we're about 470, but it's growing every day and people are coming back that have lived here before. But to your question, and I'll let Bill respond too, I think we're sensitive to moving people. We try and talk to them about resources that are available to them. The Workforce Center for Job Training, people that we can get into, various kinds of mental health and assistance for them, people that will work with various kinds of substance abuse, addiction, and try to get them off of that, temporary housing that we can provide through the various Grescio and other organizations. So we're sensitive to that, and we don't just do it in kind of a unthinking or uncaring way. So Bill, you got some thoughts?
Well, if I understand your question, does the population we're addressing, get aggravated and possibly more aggrieved and possibly more violent by going back, by being asked to move?
No, I wasn't making an assumption. I was just asking for your reflections. I just wondered if circumstances like what Chet is dealing with, if it seems as if it is you didn't have an option, but an unintended consequence of breaking up the quarry camp, that it just pushes folks around, of course, so you just... I suppose what I'm asking for reflections on, if they're seeing an uptick, is it sort of circumstantial because of the taking down of that particular camp? Is it that, or is it more reflective of an increasing population in general? I suppose that's what I was trying to get at.
Well, I think when you back to point-in-time surveys, how do you address a population that has nothing to lose? all right? And that's problematic in and of itself. Now, the incidence of problems, we see problems, but the problems are not reflected back to us. Does that make sense? If I walk up to somebody and they're aggrieved with me, you know, hey, give me some money, and I walk on, okay, that's not reflected as an issue because I didn't report it. All right, now we're sensitizing everybody that the services are available, please take advantage of them. So folks are saying, hey, you're not, as was mentioned, this is not a single occurrence at a single time. This is over time. But, you know, the question is, he's now saying, enough is enough. I'm going to take action. I'm going to report it. I've always been shocked about how many women have talked about male behavior and not reported it, which I thought maybe they should. So how big is the problem? It's big. Okay. How do we address the problem? Well, we ask the public's eyes and ears. We send folks into the public, okay, and we get folks to respond to the resources that you have made available to everybody. And that's the only answer we have. If I can't get you to the doctor, you're going to still be sick. Okay? So, and that's what we've got to consistently harp on. We used to play a game called Whack-A-Mole, which is what you're hearing. Clean out a camp. I've been to several of those events. And I've watched those folks pick up all their gear and walk down the street. And I'd stand there with them and said, where are you going? He said, well, we're going to go down about a mile, set up again, and wait for them to go back. And what was funny was the mile was in the county. The county was chasing back in the city, kind of thing. And I said, we haven't solved anything. They're going back and forth. All we're doing is cleaning up the camp and bringing it back and forth. Let's try to do something significant to try to help resolve the issue instead of perpetuating this movement back and forth. Hopefully that answers the question.
Good. Ma'am, I think you're next, right?
Okay.
Question or comment
I'm
for
gonna
us?
Switch to C4C projects.
Great.
And this is
Anyone in
specifically
particular?
Yeah, Tom. This question is for you because we've already talked to Bill, and you know, there's a big concern in the north downtown area, south Onan, east, and that is the very, very large scale arena that is being proposed by CC up in like 3,600 seat arena. No,
We're talking right on Cash La Poudre.
yeah, Cash La Poudre.
On property owned by Colorado College.
Yes.
Yes.
And a very large 3,600 seat, no parking, good luck neighborhood.
Yes.
And then they have a natatorium, a swimming arena that next to it, a swimming place, which can be anywhere from 500 to 2,000. So, I mean, potentially that little city block could house somewhere between 3,600 and possibly upwards of 5,000 people. And with no parking and a residential area to the east, you know, and I just want to know, you know, what are your thoughts on that?
Thank you. I attended one of the first meetings that they had, and the big issue was, again, this is on property owned by Colorado College. They did some research. They currently, you know, their hockey team is relatively famous, you know, and they currently play at the World Arena, you know, on the south side of town, and lots of parking there. And they're a big draw. I mean, people come from all over the region and Denver to watch them play. Now, they've done research, and many colleges, like Colorado College, have their own facility, you know, on their campus, which is a big draw. So I think they're still in the process of making decisions about how they're going to do this. I remember there were, 19 games that they would host, but then a bunch of other special events. And what came out was parking, traffic, and some kind of parking garage. Their current solution is to kind of spread it all out, you know, and maybe even bring buses in so that people could park in other parts of the city. But those that live in and around that old northern area of our city are very concerned, and rightfully so. You know, I get that. I understand that. There's a meeting Saturday. Is it 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock? 10:30? So there's another meeting. It's an issue that I don't think is resolved. Whether city council, I mean, we can talk to people, we can talk to our mayor about this, we can have influence. I don't know whether we will drive the final decision. Bill feels very strongly about this too, but it is their property that they're wanting to build not only this facility, but I think some other things too in that block, right?
Yes, the natatorium, which can seat
Natatorium,
anywhere
yeah.
from 500 to an
Right.
additional 1,500 or 2,000.
Yeah,
in
the
this
meeting
one
I
block.
attended, there were probably 200 or 300 people there.
Yes.
And it's a huge issue, and at least for me personally, it's on my plate to at least try and deal with it in some way. Bill, can you respond to your thoughts about it?
Well, I love to respond. First of all, I've been to all the meetings. Second of all, I talk to them probably weekly about this issue. How many live in a neighborhood?
Couple.
You all do. All right? What is your government's responsibility to you and your neighborhood? It's to protect your interests. Okay? How do we protect your interests? It's to know the neighborhood and get involved with the neighborhood. In this particular case, the neighborhood is Colorado College and everything around it. They've had a parking problem for years. You know, even I know that. I don't have to spend too much time on this whole issue. And I told Colorado College very specifically, buddy, I empathize, I sympathize, but in all honesty, no, you're not going cheap. The reason they're not building a multi-story garage is going to cost $7.2 million. So instead of putting the $7.2 million into a project and a process that would assist this end state, they're going to throw their hands back and say, watch what happens. We're going to increase the traffic load so high that the city will have to step in and take action. That's how it works. That's how, you got to be careful how development works. I'll build a big facility here, I'll ignore the infrastructure requirements, and lo and behold, the public is asked to pony up to the bar and pay the attendant costs. If they want the profit, I'm for you, buddy. But you're going to pay the cost to make sure it's done right the first time. Not come back later and say, well, we made a little error. And part of the little error is making sure that you have experienced council members who understand when somebody says we're going to have 19 things a year, you know that's not true. You don't leave a
Well,
facility.
because of the C4C thing, which has got the city involved. It's not even just that. They are partnering with the city
It goes on
to create
and-
a very large arena. And that's kind of another thing with protection and zoning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they somehow finagled that little block to be form-based zoning in the middle of a, you know, kind of a residentially neighborhood.
Right.
And where's the protection on that? Because
We've
there's
got to protect
actually
you up
no rules.
front. We've got to protect you up front. Let there be no doubt in anybody's mind here that their intent is to fill it 365 days a year.
Oh, yeah.
That's
absolutely.
the intent. That's what everybody's intent would be if you're building something like that. So guys, let's plan for 365 days a year so you're successful and not at the cost of the neighborhood.
And they have a $750 million endowment.
And that's
it's
the thing.
not like they're poor, and it's not like we should. They don't even pay taxes, right? Are they? They're a nonprofit. Are we actually receiving money from them with all of their buildings and everything that
The
they
students are down here at the bar right now buying drinks.
have? Okay, well this is it. So they can toss all that on us, but they're not even paying taxes because they're a nonprofit. And they have a large endowment, and they're saying, you guys pay for it later on when the city gets really pissed off and yells at you.
It's even more convoluted, but I don't want to spend a lot of time
I
doing it.
almost want to hear it,
However,
you know.
what I'm saying is my job and Tom's job to both understand it, especially the at-large council members, you've got to get involved with the communities, assist the communities in resolution. Because what usually happens, okay, is it's you versus them.
Yes, and it feels
Okay?
that way.
And you
yes.
say, well, who is them? Well, the them should never be the government. Okay? Them should be those who who feel that there is something to be made, something to be added. And our job is to assist the folks who actually don't have a voice, a real voice in resolution of this issue. And that's what we've got to ensure, and that's why you trust us to get things done.
Okie doke. I want to warn everybody, at least for me, I've got a hard stop at 7. I'm a fairly newlywed, and if I don't take my bride out for dinner at 7 for Valentine's Day, I'll be in real trouble. Bill, I think, was planning to stay a little later.
Because I came in like that, I did it earlier rather than later.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a tag team. But we do want to respond to things that are on your mind that you want us to take back to other council members. This gentleman here, if you'll pass him the mic. Right here. Oh. Thanks. Just introduce yourself and...
My name is Jerry White.
Hi, Jerry.
I live on Weber Street in the Old North End.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let you off the hook about the hockey rink. One of City Council's primary areas of responsibility is land use. And
you know, Jerry, people don't let me off the hook for anything. Yeah. So go ahead.
So the problem with the hockey rink is it's entirely out of scale with not only the Colorado College neighborhood, the adjacent residential neighborhoods, but downtown and to the north. It's just the wrong piece to go in that place.
Right.
And the parking is really there's absolutely no satisfactory solution to that. If you don't put in parking, people are going to complain because there's no parking. If you do put in parking, you're going to have what every single urban planner who's come to talk to us in the city has warned against, and that is large, empty parking areas that destroy the character, the urban, vibrant neighborhoods that we're trying to build. You cannot win with something of that size in that location. There are two contradictory needs. One is a vibrant retail urban area that cannot exist if you have large parking lots that are empty most of the time, and then a 3,000 or 4,000 person event center that needs parking. The CC proposal to distribute the parking and have buses is just absurd. Nobody can. They pay consultants a lot of money to be able to say that with a straight face. Yeah. But it's absolutely incredible. It just can't happen. And I blame, and I know I'm not supposed to, it's not good to blame people, but the city for the last 25 or 30 years has messed up the zoning in the Colorado College area. It's form-based zoning now. It was PUD.
Can you explain to people that may be watching in what form-based means?
I wish I could. You know, it's supposedly something that will honor the spirit of the existing area, based upon not sort of...
But loosely structured, right?
Loosely structured. And I live on Weber Street, and now in my neighborhood, I opened the Independent 2 weeks ago and saw on Weber Street an erotic cabaret with strippers, and there was a guy wearing not much more than a leather banana hammock, advertised, and they had booths for fetish training, sexual fetishes, in the form-based Colorado College zoning area. So, you know, the city council has failed those neighborhoods in terms of land use, and the arena.
And let me ask you, if you were king, and say you were president of city council, what would you do to fix the problem?
Thank you for asking that. And it's nice to be able to say this without having to actually do the work of city council people.
That's all right.
Thank you. But the arena is only this big because the city government has encouraged it to happen and put in millions of dollars. Colorado College had a pre-existing plan for a much smaller, properly scaled facility. And when the city had a gajillion dollars that they were going to get from the state and had 10 or 15 gajillion that they didn't have a place to put, they worked with Colorado College and stuck it there. It was a solution to a problem where the city had to spend the money on something for the C4C, and that's what we got. CC had an appropriate plan before the city took taxpayer money and put it in a way that is into a facility that could not be economically viable on its own.
Okay.
That we taxpayers have bought something that can only work because we threw this tax money at it.
Okay. I hear you, and I'm going to circle back to that, and I may circle back to you. They had a plan that was totally funded with private money. This C4C, which is City for Champions, that's what it stands for, and it's, of course, it's gotten all kinds of challenges and good and, well, mostly bad press, wouldn't you say, as this has been developing over the last 4 years. But your thoughts, you got a response to Jerry?
Okay, well, several. One, form-based is practical and usable if it's consistent. And what happens is we haven't been consistent in the use of that particular mechanism. The issue with the C4C, ladies and gentlemen, 5 years ago, I warned as much as I could everybody that this particular process, City for Champions was for 4 operations, okay, throughout the city. And ODIT, Office of Economic Development and International Trade, awarded a Regional Tourism Act amount of $121 million. Okay, now, so putting things in context, the state used TIF, which is tax incremental financing, which means everything from the certain base level, date, time, okay, till today, would go into the coffers and be used, a certain percentage would be used for these particular projects. Now, first of all, 121 million over 30 years is chump change. I mean, seriously. Okay, especially when you're talking about 4 major projects. You have the Visitor Center at Northgate. You have the UCCS
Medical facility,
which is they only give $1 million for. Then you had a stadium project, and then
on the south side of town, near Drake, right?
Near Drake, we had the stadium project, and the 4th one was the
Olympic Center,
Olympic Museum, which now the part of it's up. Do it. Okay, so all this few dollars, okay, was planted in these particular projects. Now, certain things happened and that turned to be out of context. The stadium, when it was originally designed and presented, okay, to the state, all right, was supposed to be a baseball stadium. All the numbers were done on a baseball stadium until somebody asked the Sky Sox if they were coming downtown, and they said no. So they changed it to a soccer stadium. Well, the problem was when they presented the project as a soccer stadium, we didn't have a soccer team, which causes a little bit of confusion in trying to figure out what the dollars and cents are for this particular thing. It was finally decided 4 years later. 4 years, it took them 4 years to come back and say it would cost the taxpayers $10 million a year to subsidize the stadium to make it viable. So the mayor said it's on its deathbed, and they pushed it aside. So this whole time we've been chasing this 121 million and saying the 121 million is what drives the train. And that's what you were talking about, is the fact we've driven this train to the point where people are making strategic mistakes. And by your bringing it to our attention again, and bringing it back to CC, we don't need that money. They don't need that money. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. The money's already committed to the Olympic Museum. Fine. Soccer stadium should be able to handle its own.
Medical facility already constructed.
All right, and soccer stadium should take care of itself, and the visitor center should take care of itself. By chasing it like this is where you distort the outcomes. And that's one of the things we've got to really, really pull people back and say, guys, this is not the smart way to drive this train. Because eventually what happens is, and I hopefully you know that we're spending $60 million on the build-out of Vermejo and Sierra Madre. You are. It didn't come from Modin or anybody else. Okay, and what's there at that strategic corner? The Olympic Museum. Okay, so all that build-out is designed to progress the Olympic Museum. So each one of these stages is costing more and more. Again, chasing the thing. I don't need to go too much on a tangent, but you are quite correct. We've got to be careful, and then we've got to re-engage. Saturday, I will be.
Okay, you've made your point, Jerry. The gentleman behind you.
Hi, my name is Stephen Van Dyke. There was an issue with the airport having a sealed document or something like that of, there was a I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. There was some kind of document or agreement that was made between the city. The city owns the airport, correct?
It's a municipally owned airport. You're absolutely right.
There was a sealed document that was redacted or something like that. I'm just trying to figure out if there was more information that's come out now or not.
What happens sometimes, our airport is expanding almost exponentially. We've seen new carriers come in there. There's a lot of land, between us and adjacent to Peterson Air Force Base. And as various businesses and organizations negotiate terms for coming in there and bringing jobs, and one of my concerns are good paying jobs for citizens in our community. They're in the middle of negotiations, and so these things are done confidentially, or the businesses wouldn't talk to us. Eventually, it's got to come to us for approval. Eventually, it will become public. We will have a public hearing, so that you can talk about the benefits and the negatives concerning this. But there are several businesses there that are in the midst of negotiating agreements which will bring jobs, construction opportunities, which several of us think is in the best interest of the community. Others might challenge that, and that's why a democracy works the way it does. So we have the challenge. Have you got anything you want to add to that, Bill, in terms of what's going on at the airport and why some of it may not be as transparent as you would like, I think?
Our strategic intent is to build out the airport, industrially as well as commercially. So, and we've seen all kinds of plans, and I say, show me the money. Same thing. Same thing as the Shields issue. Okay? What do we need to put you in a position to help our community out? And if it's not a net for you, ain't gonna happen. I'll sit up here and fight to make sure that we get the best return on our investment. Now, we're 1 in the country in one area, and 2 in the country in another area, and 3 in the country in another area. We are the growth place in the middle of the country that everyone wants to be. We need to take advantage of it and have them come at our advantage, not at their advantage. But I assure you, the plans are incredibly expansive. And if I had my druthers, a lot of DIA would come down here if we could get them to take off.
Good. Anybody else with a question, comment? Yes, ma'am. We'll get you. I'll bring you this microphone. Thanks for being here.
Hi, I'm Esther Mueller. It's all over the place. Just real quick on the homeless stuff, is there one point of contact that they can report? Because if this guy can report, hey, I was on the trail this week, it looks terrible, and he reports next week, hey, it looks even worse. If the guy there with the tattoo parlor can report it other than where Michelle is gonna mess with his business?
Yeah.
Is there one point of contact?
There is code enforcement.
Okay, so they call code enforcement.
They call code enforcement,
and
and our guy that works there is Andrew Phelps, and he is the belly button for issues involving homeless population.
Okay, so along with, hey, we have all these homeless services, don't give out your change, go ahead and you should always call code enforcement to report an aggressive panhandler.
Correct. Now if it's a law, I'm sorry, if it's a law enforcement kind of...
No, just, this bugged me. I can call code enforcement and report it because what you're trying to do is you're trying to build up what's going on, where's it going on. I need more than anecdotal evidence.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
That's just my thought on that.
Thank you.
Okay, where I wanted to go is, when you guys are doing this stuff at council on short-term rentals, on ADUs, on
Can you mention to people, I think everybody knows what a short-term rental, tell them what it
ADUs is accessory dwelling unit, that's when I want to...
Kind of a mother-in-law suite.
Mother-in-law suite or a little rental is part of my thing. This is always prefaced, usually by Ms. Gabler, non-covenanted neighborhoods, okay?
Yep.
So if I chose, due to whatever reason, to live in a non-covenanted neighborhood, it's a free-for-all.
Right. I live in a non-covenant neighborhood.
Right. That is not right. So what you're saying is, oh, if I live up in Flying Horse, then I don't need to worry about lanes being cut down for bike lanes. I don't need to worry about public parking coming in. But if I live in a non-covenanted community, it's a free-for-all. You guys just said you're there to protect us. The people on the Planning Commission are handpicked by the mayor. Y'all approve them, but it's handpicked by the mayor and a committee. So who's protecting us? And in non-covenant communities, that's all ages. I know there are a lot of neighborhoods where older people have lived there since their children are young and grown, and they've been there for 30 years and their houses are paid off and they want to retire there.
Right.
That's an issue around CC in some of those neighborhoods. It's an issue all over town. So who's protecting uncovenanted, non-covenanted neighborhoods? Because that was a big deal for me when you guys were talking about the short-term rentals. By the way, over 40 have registered during the month of January. So I think this is a bigger issue. And I know you guys are going to check back, in 6 months, right?
June, what we decided with these Airbnb short-term rentals, anything less than 30-day rentals, and a lot of property owners were very concerned about how this changed the character of their neighborhood, yes. and it has. And a decision was made, and it wasn't a unanimous vote. A lot of times we don't have unanimous votes up here, but to wait until June to institute an ordinance that would allow this, so at least these folks had to, come in and file and get a permit to do this, so that we could track it and indicate that if neighbors had issues, there was a place to call and make a complaint. And we're going to revisit this in June to see what's the best thing for this community to do.
Well, I'm just giving you an update on that because a lot of times at council meetings, you all ask for updates from the city.
We do.
Yes, you ask for them. Do you get them?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. The other question I have, Mr. Green, bless his heart, in all his little homilies and stuff, he puts the kibosh on stuff. There was a deal where the Mill Street neighborhood finally had this Mill Street plan, and the question was asked, hey, what about the C4C thing? That's this soccer stadium and these apartments that are going to cast an amazing shadow on this lovely Mill Street neighborhood plan. And Mr. Green's like, oh no, that's out of the scope. So how do you guys bring that in? How do you protect that neighborhood? I'm sure that neighborhood was thrilled that somebody came and cared about them. Just as Ms. Avila has stated that, the people in her district were thrilled that this planned cost stuff came down. We do a lot of stuff where we do a lot of talking, but nobody really gets heard because the stuff goes forward the way it's planned. I'm sure that's how that CC stuff feels. And that CC stuff, that's the deal with parking. You've got a hotel where it's not going to have the number of parking because we all have this fantasy that we're all going to give up our cars and use the bike lanes and use our not quite up to snuff public transportation system. So who's pulling all this stuff together? Because what I see is, you guys had your kumbaya meetings with the mayors where you all decided on the goals and the strategies, and those are never emphasized, and I'm not even clear if those are the stuff I wanted.
Right.
But that's where council seems to go all the time. It's like this big rubber stamp process. It's so frustrating because I don't know if I trust Mr. Cope's facts and figures because we never go back and go, hey, it's been 5 years. How's this looking? Are we tracking? It's been 10 years. How's that looking? Are we tracking? We never do. So, I'm like,
well, you are singing to Mr. Murray's choir. And your point, shotgun a number of issues. I'm just going to answer who I think protects the community. Each of the 6 districts, has got a representative that they have elected, and then the whole community elects the 3 at-large people. And in my opinion, we're the ones that are accountable to you. And if we're not doing what you need us to do, then you need to find someone who will. That's your protector. And so I'll deal with that question, and then I'll let Mr. Murray comment on some of the other things that you said, because he brings this up at least every month, if not every meeting.
My elected official
Yes.
is really the ringleader in all the stuff that I do not care for.
Well, I'm sorry.
And I don't believe that she's representing her district.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I know, and that's why we allow you to come and get that out and tell us how you feel. So thank you. Who else got something? Bill, did you want to comment?
Ladies and gentlemen, when I first joined this council, because you elected me, my concept of the operation was what I affectionately called the wisdom of Solomon. And that was, of course, the issue where his resolution was chop the baby in half, and the real mother said, no, we want to keep the baby whole. And that's what I considered community, that the community would rise up and would protect the baby. That's not how things work. It's a series of trade-offs. It's a series of consequences. Are you talking about a community or the community? Are we talking about a district? Are we talking about the city? Everything's connected. Every road, every pipeline in this city is connected. And if I move it from here, I will affect here, here, and here. If you would understand the amount of money it's going to take to move the infrastructure downtown for the Olympic Museum, you'd start shaking your head. It's incredible. But if you're going to do big things, it's going to take big issues. And because you've wrapped so many issues together in one little ball, it's hard to really pull it out. It's, again, talking about the homeless. How do you structure homeless? ADUs was a response to affordable housing. Okay? Instead of sending somebody else to the environment, if you know the person, you trust the person, or it's a family member, why can't we allow them to live, in next building? Convert your garage into an apartment, let your mother-in-law live there or whatever. But what I'm saying is that we're trying to resolve each individual environment. As a community, you always have the right, as an individual, you always have the right to come to any one of us. And if you don't get that resolution, the way the council works is there's 6 districts and 3 at large. The district person works directly for you, but so do the 3 at-large members. And we don't get a lot of foot traffic up here. Okay, and we get a lot of all council emails, hundreds and hundreds a day. I try to screen them as fast as I can to try to glean what the issues are, but it's really quite overwhelming on occasion. But you still have to ask the questions of the good mayor's office. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? What does it mean for us? You got to hold them accountable to the numbers. Okay, you got to do your own research. That's the important issue of you getting involved in democracy. You got to trust the people you're electing to do what's in your and the city's best interests. If you don't get those people, then the system's failed. You need to find somebody who will run. And this position pays $6,200. I constantly ask folks who have immense backgrounds in city planning and transit and everything. Please sign up and be part of this thing. And what they tell me all the time is, I don't mind handling transit, but I don't want to handle homeless, and I don't like this. And we can't. This has got to be the whole geographic picture. Hopefully that answers your questions, and we'll do better.
We tried. One of the things that attracts me to local government is that I think we can make a difference at a local level a lot easier than at the state level in Denver, or God forbid what's going on in Washington, D.C. Because that just seems to be so tied up and paralyzed to Tom Strand. But I think local government, and if you'll get involved, we've got over 55 boards, commissions, and committees that you can participate on. Bill and I and the other council members listen to them. We rely on them, whether they're the Parks Commission, the Planning Commission, is another case. A lot of times when I started, I wanted to sit in on those meetings, but I found out from our attorneys that I would get locked up into these quasi-judicial issues so that I couldn't make a decision and I'd have to recuse myself. So I stopped going to those after I think my first one, when the attorney grabbed me and said, don't sit in on those. But we do have these commissions, committees. Today I sat in, I'm a liaison to the LART committee. which is your lodging and rental car taxes. About $7 million comes in, for lodging and rental tax. And so those are things I would encourage you to get involved with, that you pay attention to. And I'll tell you, we do listen to citizen comments on Tuesdays. We start the meeting at 1 o'clock. Usually we're into citizen comment by about 1:45 at the latest. And sometimes it's an hour. And people will come and talk to us about bike lanes. They'll come and talk to us about whether our law enforcement people are doing their jobs. You probably know the mayor has nominated Vince Nishke as the new chief of police. That'll come to council for approval. But we encourage you to come. I love to hear people come that really are concerned about making this a better city and that say things that they've thought about. Because we get a lot of people that sometimes haven't really thought through what their comments are. So those of you that have spent your evening so far, other comments or questions that you've got this evening? Looking to my right, looking to my left. Well, Bill, do you want to kind of wrap up? It's about 7 o'clock, so I'll let you take the mic.
In summation, it's critically important that we understand how the whole system works. Okay, you've got an executive, which is the mayor, and then got the legislator. Okay, day-to-day activities. We learned this the hard way for striping of roads and bicycle lanes. Okay, mayor said it's going to happen. And we say, why? He said, because his director said it's a safety issue, so he did it anyway. I mean, we got the flack for all those things. We had nothing to do with any of the bike lanes, except a tenant to come back and say, I don't think that was the smartest thing you could do. And so I ask you all to assist us as the legislative function, okay, to keep pressure on the executive function to do their job. Okay, and that's what's critical for the success of where we're going next. We have transit issues, we have road issues, we have stormwater issues, we have parks and recs issues, we have police safety issues, okay, but the two teams have got to work in sync. And that's, as you address each and every issue, please think of it this way. Executive does the day-to-day effort in the city.
Jerry's got a comment.
All right, sorry.
Jerry White, I'm going to call you on that bike lane statement you just made. You guys passed the Bike Master Plan 9-0.
Correct.
You passed Plan COS. You approved the Downtown Imagine Downtown Plan. You support Downtown Partnership with their Bike Master Plan. City Council has been supportive of bike infrastructure in the city all along. And then when the shit hits the fan, you're running for cover. We need you guys to stand up and observe the previous decisions that you made when it looked good to you to build a city for the future. And you need to stand up for that city of the future that you voted 9-1 for all those different plans. You need to stand up when you start getting some pushback.
Okay, now, so you understand what the issue here is, and from a personal perspective, okay, the first modification to a road was research. And I personally witnessed that disaster epic, and I personally went to the mayor and said, where did this come from? This was not in the master plan.
Nobody defends Research Parkway, right? It was.
Well, again, it was part and parcel of how they executed the plan that we gave them.
No. Research was not anything. It was completely separate. The downtown, all the plans that I cited that you guys supported.
Correct.
And now, when you get some pushback, you're running from it. And that's not the city of Colorado Springs for the future that we need to have.
Well said.
Yeah.
Okay. Bill, with that, I am going to say we ought to conclude. Yep, we ought to conclude. Bill and I try and do these every 3 months, and we'll try and continue that if we have the opportunity to. And with that, we'll wish you all a very happy Valentine's Day. Be safe and have a good 2019. Thank you.
Hey,